Yeah. Normally I bring my books.
I need a new bookshelf.
Yeah, just for reading. Normally when I bring it, I didn't bring it tonight. I have literally a suitcase of books and reading. They are this high. And that's not including the research, and that's just reading. And then I have the math set, and that, right, there's so much information supporting these statements.
And Tom,
yeah,
the large scale study, you'll give us on the, you'll post how to get to that source.
Oh yeah, so if Darkwing is the name of the .edu, I think is the name of the site. If you just Google project file through Darkwing, I think it'll come up as the first hit. Darkwing, I think is the name of the, of where it was published. But yeah, it's really fascinating. So the idea is that gives us hope, right? So if we can design instruction properly, you can replicate it at scale, right? Which is the challenge, right? Because you have those teachers that are just geniuses and they can, they're great, but you have to think about if you're improving an education system, how does the average teacher teach? Can we improve the average teacher's teaching, right? And if you have curricula that work, that helps, right? You can't just rely on the 1 out of 10 teachers that's really excellent, right? And just kind of figures this stuff out that works kind of on their own. You need to give them some tools that actually work, right? Just like doctors, right? We don't ask doctors to invent the surgeries they do, right? We have research that tells them how to do that, and then we train them, right? We don't ask doctors to invent the medicines they prescribe, but we ask teachers to invent all the lessons they do. Why? Think about that, right? It doesn't mean they're less professional for not doing the lessons. It means they're more professional. We don't ask airline pilots to invent the protocol for flying an airplane. They go to school to learn the things that have been proven to work, right? So again, right now, education is not an evidence-based profession. You can't go to education schools and be told, at almost all of them in the country, there's a few that are good, but like in reading, what is the best way to teach reading? You're not going to get that, but you should get that, because we could have dramatic improvements in reading. America, by the way, is the worst of all the English-speaking countries. It's the worst for teaching reading. We have the lowest literacy rates. You guys all see that, I guess it was yesterday, Frederick County Public Schools, in terms of the college and career readiness, Ann posted about this. We have a 5% proficiency rate. 5%.
And that's our whole goal, isn't it?
That's a whole goal.
Is to be either college or career ready.
College or career ready.
We are not doing that.
95% failure rate. I mean, this is what FCPS has said, not my numbers, it's theirs. 95. So we can do better, right? And hopefully some of these ideas are going to be helpful in folks thinking about this. And then learning by doing, a lot of emphasis on like authentically, working through projects. I'm not against doing group work, I'm not against doing projects, but those should be more of a capstone rather than your main staple, right? The problem with discovery learning, which is the other name for learning by doing, is that kids often discover when they experiment with the science, they give them some science stuff to play with, a ball and some electricity or whatever it is, some hands-on materials. They often discover the wrong concepts because what actually is happening for the scientific phenomena isn't intuitively obvious. So they think one thing, but they actually might think it's wrong, right? So if they were observing, the old experiment where you blow in a bottle and like the ping pong ball comes up, or all the sort of science things that sort of classic things that we show, kids often conclude the wrong things. And because they were really thinking hard about that, that's the thing that sticks in their brain. The wrong concept sticks in their brain. Where if the teacher had just said, here's how this works, and here's why, right? And now we do an experiment to kind of show that, and we'll do some experiments that validate what we were taught, and then we'll also do some experiments to discover something related to this concept. You can set it up in a way where you don't send kids down those blind alleys, but the pure discovery learning creates a lot of blind alleys.
So would you then agree that the Montessori concept is a little bit confusing to children?
Yes, I think it's good. Like, I would argue that Montessori is appropriate probably for the younger grades. I think works better, but when you start having to deal with like abstract concepts and more complicated material, it's a little bit harder. So yeah, I question Montessori. I think like preschool and kindergarten is probably fine. I think when you start getting into reading, I will tell you this: the Montessori schools here actually teach scientifically based reading in addition to the traditional Montessori things. And they do have some hands-on things that are supported by science. So for example, they're known for their like big letters that have like the sandpaper on them and they're nice and tactile. That's actually totally validated. Yeah, that's totally validated. Like if you trace your fingers on, that helps you know what the letter looks like. It actually, you being able to write the letter or trace with your finger actually helps you recognize it and read better. So there's some good things that Montessori did. They didn't have MRI scans or any of the things we have now, but they did discover some things that are really good. So It's not all wrong, but I think it's a question of degree, right? Like you don't want to do, I wouldn't make that your primary right away. And then disability, so we often hear, oh, well, they're just special ed kids, we can't expect much. Well, most special ed kids actually have pretty mild learning disabilities, right? Run-of-the-mill dyslexia, run-of-the-mill like ADHD, run-of-the-mill difficulties with processing. It's like 95%. And so through high expectations, teaching and student effort, you can mitigate those. And so I think we make excuses for our special education population and don't expect as much as we should from them. They can do more. Again, there's a 5% or so that have more severe things, and those are really challenging, and that's a different animal. But to say that every kid that's in special education, it's okay that we have, what's our passing rate? It's like, 30%, 10%. I mean, these are horrible rates if you look at our Maryland State Report Card. Those kids are not getting what they should get, right? We can do more though. So